I have a feeling this isn't the only time we're going to make a video about one team in particular absolutely loading themselves up to the brim. Because not only have we seen the Chicago Blackhawks sign Tyler Bertuzzi to a 4-year deal with a $5.5 million AAV, but we also saw them sign Teuvo Teravainen as well. The Blackhawks have been wheeling and dealing, folks. And I get it. This contract right here is very bizarre because the announcement was made at 4:30 a.m. that this contract would have been signed. AAV term, it's all there. Is this not tampering? I'm confused. Luke Pedersen goes out there and says, "How do you think we get 15 plus signings within the first hour of free agency every year? Players and agents can talk to teams a little before free agency officially begins." And look, it's only tampering if the team who holds the rights forbids it. Toronto most likely allowed this because, the Toronto Maple Leafs are going out there and making their own signings. But when it comes to Tyler Bertuzzi, this was a pretty big name player playing for the Maple Leafs. 43 points in 80 games played, 21 goals, 22 assists, 4 points in 7 games in the playoffs this previous season. And of course, he had the crazy playoffs last year with the Boston Bruins, 10.7 games played in that series against the Panthers. Tyler Burt has been pretty good the past few years, and honestly, when it comes to this deal, look, you can't go out there and criticize any AAV or any term given out by any players by Chicago because it's the Blackhawks. They need guys to help bolster up their lineup. When it comes to Bertuzzi, though, nephew Bert kind of has a similar role, I would say, in this entire Blackhawks organization that Corey Perry did last season. Now, of course, you hope that the entire controversy that occurred with Perry doesn't occur here with Bertuzzi, but to get a physical guy, a nice paced player who can stand up for his teammates like Connor Bedard whilst having some good offensive impact as well. Chicago is getting 4 years of this in nephew Todd, and I think it's a pretty good signing. Now, AFP Analytics went out there and tweeted this out. It's a touch higher on the AAV than our projection, but very much within reason. Love this pickup for the Blackhawks. Good top 9 winger to strengthen the room around Bedard. Their projected cap hit for Bertuzzi was $5.2 million a year for 4 years. The actual cap hit is 5.5. So the Blackhawks, considering they didn't wildly overpay for this guy, they're doing some pretty good work. And honestly, you can't go out there but respect the hustle here. The comparable contracts in this age range and in terms of the player profile, you've got Gustav Nyquist for the Blue Jackets, his 4-year contract with a $5.5 million AAV. The Zach Hyman deal in Edmonton, 7 years, $5.5 million. I feel like the Zach Hyman contract was one of the best ones we may have ever seen. Multiple-time 50-goal scorer, and a guy who is just going to continue torching the NHL in the crease alongside of Connor Mack and Leon Draisaitl. Of course, assuming McDavid and Draisaitl stay in Edmonton. Tyler Bertuzzi's contract with the Maple Leafs last season at $5.5 million is another comparable, which makes sense. I mean, the cap percentage is a little bit lessened nowadays on this current $5.5 million contract because the cap has gone up since last year. Tyler Toffoli with Montreal in the 2020 offseason, and then Nino Niederreiter in Nashville. 2 years, $4 million AAV. So these are our comparable contracts for Tyler Bertuzzi, a guy who could very well score a lot more points with the Blackhawks because he might be given a bigger role on that team. All you got to do is play this guy with Bedard. If Bertuzzi can become to Connor Bedard what Zach Hyman is to Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, then I'm not saying we're getting 50 goals out of Tyler Bertuzzi, but if he gets 30 next year, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he scored 30 in the past. 30 goals, 68 games played with the Wings in 21-22. That feels like an attainable kind of move, especially when you consider the offensive talent he will be forced to play with in order to make his contract worth it in Connor Bedard and in fellow teammate Teuvo Teravainen. Take a look at this tweet made by Chris Johnston after already adding Tyler Bertuzzi. Sources say the Blackhawks will also be signing forward Teuvo Teravainen today, a reunion with a player who previously won a Stanley Cup there. Stanley Cup? Chicago Blackhawks? Yeah, no, that seems like a mile away. But then you think about it, it's like, oh, that was in 2015. Hey. That was 9 years ago. Yeah, that was a mile away. The Blackhawks were a dynasty in 2010. They won the Stanley Cup then. They also won it in 2013. They also won it in 2015. And Teuvo Teravainen was a part of this Blackhawks squad in that 2015 run. 10 points, 18 games played. He one-upped his production from the regular season as a rookie in the NHL, and then proceeded to have the career that he did. 35 points, 78 games the next season, and then he went to Carolina and absolutely popped off, maxing out at 76 points in 82 games in 2018-19. I had Teravainen on my fantasy team throughout the years. I remember in like grade 9 or whatever, this 2015-16 season, he was there, he was doing some pretty good things, and then he got traded to Carolina, and I took him the next year as well. Teravainen has always been a stud, and you cannot go out there and deny the skill, the goal scoring, the versatility there. He is a solid, consistent player all throughout, and the Blackhawks seems like they're signing him at a 3-year, $5.4 million AAV cap hit. They signed Teravainen for less money per season than Tyler Bertuzzi. That's crazy. I get it, you know, AAV, you could say that Teravainen is older, Teravainen is not as physical, he's not as valuable in a way than a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi, because Big Bert or smaller Bert can go out there and stand up for his teammates. He has a physical edge. Teravainen doesn't necessarily have that, but what Teravainen lacks in overall aggression, he makes up for in skill. I'd say that Teravainen is a more skilled and more offensively capable player than Tyler Bertuzzi, but who really knows? I mean, we'll get a chance to see that when they play with each other this upcoming season and for the next 3 years, because Bertuzzi, as we had said, he's on the books for 4 years. You've got Teravainen on the books for 3 years. This Blackhawks team is improving their squad around Connor Bedard like crazy. And you think about the teams that will be making the biggest improvements to their forward core, their on-ice product, their production for 2024, 2025, I feel like Chicago is going to be right up in there. I mean, let's take a look at the Chicago Blackhawks on their lines. They still have Taylor Hall in the system. Of course, they have Connor Bedard. Philip Kurashev is here. Andreas Athanasiou. They got Frank Nazar III. And Ilya Mikheyev. That's crazy. What if Ilya Mikheyev ends up bolstering up his career playing with Bedard, or playing with Teravainen, or playing with whomever else? I mean, that's kind of a meme here for Vancouver Canucks fans, because yeah, Ilya Mikheyev was playing with Pettersson for the majority of 2023, 2024, and he still sucked. So who knows if playing alongside of any of these other guys will help him bolster up his career. But he's got 2 more line mates in Tyler Bertuzzi and Teuvo Teravainen to try to make things work. And for Connor Bedard, you are finally starting to surround him with the offensive talent necessary to bolster up, grow, and what's that word? What's the verb? You know, when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly? Oh boy, there's a word for that, and I can't think about it. I am stupid. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're a Chicago Blackhawks fan, how do you feel about this Tyler Bertuzzi contract given out by the Blackhawks? 4 years, $5.5 million AAV. What are your thoughts about Teuvo Teravainen? His contract is 3 years, $5.4 million AAV. The Blackhawks are cooking. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99, and bye.